This is the 2022 5th generation iPad Air. Let's review it. Welcome everybody to Apple Insider. It is Andrew here, and you can find me on Twitter at Andrew_OSU. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit subscribe and smash that notification icon so you don't miss a single video. Now, I've been using this guy, the new 5th generation 2022 iPad Air. And honestly, I'll tell you before we even get into the review, this is probably the iPad you should buy. Of all the iPads in the lineup, this is the iPad that most people should pick up. More likely even than the 11-inch iPad Pro. But there's a lot to talk about, of course, so let's go ahead and dive into this review. And if it helps at all, use those chapter markers down below to skip to the sections that matter most to you. So let's hit the basics of the new iPad Air. It does have the same footprint as it did before. Apple hasn't changed anything there. So cases for the 4th generation iPad Air will work on the 5th generation iPad Air. And any cases on the 11-inch iPad Pro will also work on the iPad Air. What Apple did change was introduce some new colors. Still comes in space gray, but silver has been replaced by starlight. We also have pink, purple, and blue. The blue is a wonderful new color that I'm going to show off in this video, and green has gone away in favor of that purple color. And that pink is more of a variation on the rose gold that we had with that 4th generation device. Otherwise, these guys are basically the same external device. There's a 12 megapixel camera around the back, there are dual stereo speakers when you're listening in landscape mode, and there is a front-facing camera, though Apple did up the resolution from 7 megapixels to 12 megapixels. We'll revisit the cameras in just a few. The screen is also the same. It has not changed from the prior generation, which means it also lacks ProMotion, which is found in the 11-inch iPad Pro. So standard 60 Hz refresh rate on the 5th generation iPad Air display. The bottom still charges up over USB-C, though Apple has doubled the speed now. Now, instead of being capped at 5 gigabits per second, it now is capped at 10 gigabits per second, which means it can also power more displays. So you can power up to a 6K display with the iPad Air, or transfer a lot of data really fast. We definitely saw improved speed times with NVMe-based SSDs, such as the CalDigit Tough Nano Plus, which is one of our go-tos. One of the bigger things that changed with the iPad Air is that Apple has finally abandoned the A-series processors for the iPad Air and instead has moved to the M-series, just as it has with the iPad Pros. Right now, both the 11 and the 12.9-inch iPad Pros have the M1 processor, as well as several Macs. Now, the iPad Air does as well. So the iPad Air gains the M1 processor, putting it on the same level in terms of speed performance as Apple's most expensive tablets. That is a big deal, and it means a couple things. First, it means if you pick up an iPad Air, it's going to deal with pretty much any task that you throw at it. Any normal day-to-day activity on the iPad Air has been incredibly fast. As I say here, opening videos, switching between tabs in Safari, jumping between apps, everything is smooth as I could want it to be. On top of that, it means the iPad Air is going to work really well for a long time. You're going to see performance and speed for years to come, and not just now here at launch. Finally, and this is just a hope on my end, Apple's got something in the bag for iPadOS. I want to see Apple really deliver something great with iPadOS 16 that can more take advantage of the silicon it's put inside of these tablets. Right now, we don't have any proof that that's happening. I've just heard different rumors and stuff, but I really hope that Apple has something in store for upgraded versions of iPadOS that can tap into that M1 processor much more than iPadOS 15 is doing now. If you're into benchmarks, it scored a 1715 and a 7229 on a single and multi-core test. And yeah, that's basically the same thing that the 11 and 12.9-inch iPad Pro scored. As I mentioned, the cameras got upgraded. Apple didn't touch the 12 megapixel sensor on the back and still lacks an ultra-wide lens and LiDAR, but the front-facing camera definitely got an overhaul. Apple moved from that 7 megapixel to a 12 megapixel sensor, so you have much more detail in the images that you take when using the front-facing camera. I think that is a big deal. Now, Apple continues to put the cameras right here at the top when the iPad's in portrait mode, which means if you've got your iPad in landscape mode, your camera's kind of off to the side. And it looks a little funky because it looks like you're staring off into the ether when you're taking a video call. I think a lot of people take FaceTime and video calls on their iPads, and I kind of am starting to wish that Apple had moved that camera to the top of the side, or the top if it's in landscape, compared to the narrow end. This could just be me, and it really depends on how you use your iPad. It's not a big deal. I just always try to remember to look at the camera when I'm taking those video calls. But what's improved this year is, on top of that larger sensor, Apple has also introduced center stage to the iPad Air. Now, it has a 122-degree field of view that would follow you around as you go. So if you have this propped up and there's multiple people here, we'll all show up on camera at the same time. It's pretty great, and we've used this on many other Apple products, and it's just a nice thing to have here on the most widely appealing version of the iPad. So here's the thing with the new version of the iPad Air. The 2022 iPad Air is a great tablet. The iPad Air 5 is an awesome tablet, but the features, the updates, aren't super impressive sounding. Oh, sub 6 gigahertz 5G support on the cellular models. Twice as fast USB-C speeds. You got an M1 processor that was in a bunch of other products before coming to the iPad. These are all things that we've heard before. I spent an inordinate amount of time in my written review talking about the colors of the iPad because that's one of the most exciting new things to have. I will say without a doubt, it is not worth upgrading from the iPad Air 4 to the iPad Air 5. There's just not enough there to warrant an upgrade after only a year and a half. But if you are in the market for an iPad, this is undoubtedly the one that I would tell you to buy, even if this year's upgrades aren't super attention grabbing. I think it's a better option than the iPad Pro, which costs a couple $100 more and doesn't have huge features either. Some things like the ProMotion display, the LiDAR scanner, millimeter wave 5G, and a few other things just aren't huge reasons for people to upgrade. I think the iPad Pro, that's the 12.9 inch size, is a much more reasonable iPad to buy if you're looking for something more than the iPad Air. The 12.9 inch iPad is great because it has a mini LED display instead, and it's much better for multitasking, where you can watch something in picture-in-picture of two apps in split view and pull something over and slide over, and it feels reasonable. Whereas on the 11 inch iPad Pro and the 10.9 inch iPad Air, it feels a little cramped. So, to clarify, most people should be buying the iPad Air. I genuinely like it, and the upgrades this time around, they're great, they're just not super exciting. The biggest issue with it, though, is storage. Apple only offers two storage configurations, and that's either 64 gigs on the base model, or chunk down another $150 to go to a 256 gigabyte option. There's no 128 option available, and Apple kind of wants you just to move up to the iPad Pro, but you're gonna spend a bit more, whether you're looking at buying the 256 in either situation or just getting up to 128. I think it still makes more sense to stick with the iPad Air. I think this is an excellent tablet, and it's more affordable than the iPad Pros. But hey, that's just my opinion. I want to know what you guys think. What do you guys think about the new iPad Air? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you wish Apple had done more? Let me know in the comments or on Twitter at Andrew_OSU. And if you want to grab a new iPad Air for yourself, including in this stunning blue, you can find the links for it and deals I've started to round up already in the description. Otherwise, stay tuned. We got a lot more videos heading your way.